After a few years, Dad sold the dairy farm and started to live in Calgary, and so we farmed in the summer and we lived in Calgary in the winter. And Dad had a full-time job, Mom had a full-time job, and every evening I would go out to either Olympic Park or Happy Valley, as it was known then, where the ski meisters trained, and I would ski. And many nights I would go out and sometimes put a blindfold on and ski with a friend and develop a feel for the snow, because I had been told by coaches that I had no feel for the snow, that I didn't know how to feel the snow. And so I would ski blindfolded so that I would develop a very subtle way of going down the hill in the dark. The hill was almost dark anyway. There was very few lights out there. And I remember coming into the day lodge, and as I came into the day lodge that night, I heard my dad's voice very loud. "Sir, there will have to be a lot of water go under the bridge before we get to that point." I'm Jungle Jim Hunter, and you're listening to 831 Living Your Best Life podcast, and our goal is to inspire participation, communicate precision, and empower performers to podium. Now, not everybody's going to be a champion, but we hope that you will live your best life, and you will tell your friends to go to their favorite podcast provider or to junglejimhunter.com and subscribe, download, and click on like and rate and review this podcast, and let us know how we can help you. What's the mountain this podcast? All this week, we're going to talk about overcoming mountains. This is overcoming politics. And I'm not going to talk much about politics, but I want to talk about overcoming the politics of when people are against you. You see, I was told from the time I started skiing at 12 that because I was so late and because I didn't have a history in it and because I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't race, that I would never make it. Just like I'd been told I can't develop a feel for the snow. And I had developed a feel for the snow by doing things like I just said, by putting a blindfold on and skiing with a friend that had a bell in front of him, and he would ski in front of me and I would follow him down the hill. And he would keep me out of trouble and away from other skiers, and I was developing a feel for the snow to the best of my ability. And one night a week, I would ski that way. A lot of people didn't know that's what I was doing. And sometimes I didn't even have somebody out there, so I would just go down the hill by myself. I would go off to one side, and I would make sure that I was listening to everybody around me, and I would ski blindfolded down the hill. I know, the owner of the ski hill probably didn't want to know that, but nevertheless, it was what I knew I had to do. You see, I knew the politics was against me. I knew that other people were against me. But you know what? The ski meisters coaches I had were never against me. But often they would just say to me, "Jim, just go for it. Just go. Just do what you do." And I would do it. Well, on that day in the day lodge, when I split through the crowd and they finally separated, before I saw my dad sitting there drinking a cup of coffee with a very knowledgeable, high-powered coach here in Alberta and the owner of the ski hill, I heard this conversation. The coach said to my dad that I would never make it to the Alberta team, and that I would never make it on the national team, and that I would never make it to the World Cup because it was just too late. It was impossible. And that he was wasting his money and wasting his time. What this man didn't know is that my dad paid me to work on the farm and I paid my own way. So it was my money I was wasting. And so I heard this, and the owner of the ski hill agreed. And that's when I heard my dad say, "There's a lot of water's got to go under the bridge before we make that decision." And just then the crowd parted. Dad saw me. He stood up. He said, "Thank you, gentlemen." He moved towards me. We got in the car. We drove home. And as we were driving home, he didn't say a word. And he pulled up in front of the house. He looked at me and he said, "Son, how much of that did you hear?" I said, "All of it." He said, "Doesn't that bother you?" I said, "No." "Why?" I said, "Dad, I want to be on the national team. I don't want to be on the Alberta team. Nothing wrong with it. It's a great place. It's a great team. They're great skiers. But my goal is World Cup. I want to go to the World Cup. I want to race against the best." Remember, I started to do this because no Canadian male had ever been on a podium in the World Championships and Olympic Games. And when I started, the World Cup didn't exist. It only started in 1967. So, Dad, I want to be on the World Cup circuit. What are you going to do? I said, "I don't know. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm already doing. Because I'm not going to let the politics of the situation get in the way of my performance. Because I can't control what they do. In other words, I've got to get my act together. And this whole week, you're going to hear this. You develop your character. You develop your act. You take action. What could I do about the politics? What can you do about the politics you're faced with? And I know you're all faced with that. What can you do? What can you do today to change the situation? How can you communicate to yourself so that you are telling yourself how to overcome that? And what training do you need? That's how you get your act together. That's how you deal with politics. Change doesn't come about because somebody else does it for you. Change comes about because you do something for them that they can't resist, that they can't turn down. My quote for the day: you may want to wait for the politics to change before you get what you want. But if you do what you can, the politics may change to what you want. My 1% challenge this week is I want you to take 1 hour a day and put together your act. Get your act together of what you can do to change your situation. 1 week, 7 hours. 1 year, 365 hours. It only took me a couple of minutes, maybe 1 hour, of talking to my dad about what I was going to do and how I was going to do it. And that was the end of it. How many hours will it take you? I really appreciate you listening. Thank you. And I hope by next time we meet, you will have grown.